just a little bit about what we're going to be doing. So there's about 4 questions. We're going to spend about 7 to 8 minutes on each question. Um, and then we'll report out our answers for question 2. Like I said, I'm Lisa Gavoni. I work on housing planning for the planning department, and I'm going to be leading and moderating the discussion. I'm joined by Luke, who's going to be taking some notes for us, and he's going to be our report out. But I'm really interested in having this conversation. We'd had a kickoff in person a couple weeks ago, and it went really well, and people just gave like really great feedback. And I'm just really interested in what everyone has to say. So I'll throw out the first question and then anyone that wants to jump in can jump in and then we'll take it from there. So the first question is, when you think about future change in Friendship Heights, what are you most excited about? Anyone want to start?
Sure. Shopping, retail therapy coming. I like the development. Uh, I like that new things are coming in Friendship Heights. And I'm serious. I like more shopping in here, in the areas. I go by foot most everywhere in the community. My husband owned Chadwick's Friendship Heights for 35 years, so been around for a while, and it's been dead. So I'm happy about what's happening.
That's a really great point. I mean, I used to go to Friendship Heights a lot for the shopping when the TJ Maxx was there and the World Market was there. And now it's just
Yeah.
like there's no reason for me to really go anywhere because I can just go to the Pike to get those. What about anyone else? Does anyone else have any? What are they excited about?
Can I chime in?
Sure.
My name is Susie, and I've lived in Chevy Chase Village since 1986. So I've seen the evolution of Friendship Heights over close to 4 decades. Obviously, COVID hit this community really hard, and we've seen some of the results of that. You see now Mazda Gallery is being reimagined. I'm watching its rebuilding. It's mostly going to be housing, but I think some retail. So I guess what I want to see is just a reinvigoration. Sorry, reinvigoration of Friendship Heights because it in the past has been amazing, and COVID hit this community very hard, and I feel like we have not come back from it, obviously, but I'm hoping we will come back. Um, we are obviously there's going to be some issues around housing, affordable housing or attainable housing. That's a separate issue. I do have some concerns about how that plays out frankly, in communities like mine, because I don't think that having multi-story duplexes works particularly well in a community that's mostly single-family housing, although I am very sensitive to the need to increase affordable housing generally in Montgomery County. So I am sensitive to that. So those are my thoughts.
That's great. Anyone else? Monica?
Yeah, I was gonna say that similar to the last speaker, that I really am excited about having more vigorous community in the area. I've lived in Montgomery County for about 15 years. Actually in Bethesda, but I commute through Friendship Heights downtown 3 days a week. So I'm in Friendship Heights a lot. And yeah, it's been sad, seeing a lot of things close down, and I'm excited about adding more housing in the area because I think that's really what it's going to take to get those businesses to be successful. I mean, some people will drive in, but having a concentrated base of people who will be shopping and going out and things and living right there, I think will give us a lot of the energy that we need. So I'm excited about the different, I'm psyched to see the Mazza Gallery development go up. And I'm really curious to hear. I put a question in the chat about coordination with DC, and I totally get that you guys are in close touch, which is great. And it just does make me wonder, like, how can we take into, as Montgomery County thinks about our side, take into account what they're doing on their side and make sure they're complementary.
That's a really good point. I think, Atar mentioned, they do meet with DCOP, Office of Planning, a monthly, and they try to coordinate as much as they can. I think, there's questions, how seamless is that when you have, different zoning codes? But I think, the experience of Friendship Heights, there is really, the Maryland DC border is not there. It's a seamless pedestrian experience. So I understand your point, and that's good. That's good. That's a good comment. Does anyone else want to talk about what they're excited about? Susie or Laura? Oh, Susie,
Sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. Took me a minute to find my mute button
Me
again.
too.
Um, you don't want to see my living room, so I won't put you on video. Um, uh, it's an interesting question because let's see most about future change because I don't really quite understand what Friendship Heights is at present. So to think about what I'd get excited about in the future is really difficult for me. I, like Susie, am a Chevy Chase resident, and I typically get in by, walking we have a park. Um, that runs behind the Saks, and the collection. And that's a very easy way for us to get in. It can be a little bit, I don't know, off-putting because there is a large wall, that separates the village from the collection. But it's very easy to access what's on Wisconsin Avenue. But I don't know, Friendship Heights doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Probably the layout of it. I don't understand, the loss of businesses, restaurants coming in, but how many restaurants can it really sustain? Somebody else in terms of the attainable housing, I look at it and it's just, I mean, what probably made sense a while, before the apartment buildings and everything, it probably made sense when there were more houses there and probably had a better feel to it as well. But now for me, I don't know, it doesn't make much sense. And yeah, and even like the Whole Foods development in there, I mean, that's kind of a hard space to negotiate your way around. So I even feel like a lot of the shopping opportunities, and I love the World Market and what was in there, but even accessing that was like you didn't even realize how much was in there until you kind of went in there. So sorry, that's not really answering the question. But yeah, I kind of come back to that. When I think about future change, what am I most excited about? I mean, well, I kind of would love to see what it would be like when it wasn't such a hodgepodge of apartment buildings and retail. So, um, yeah, sorry, that's
That's
my
okay. I
2 cents. Yeah,
Can
whatever
I
you-
tack on?
Sure.
yeah.
So appreciate what Laura just said. I remember, because I've been here this long, when Chevy Chase Pavilion, we were there the night it opened, the evening it opened, and there was such excitement there. That obviously has not been a development that's gone over particularly well, particularly in the last few years. Mazda Gallery, again, was at one point really exciting development. Remember, guys, do you remember there was a movie theater on the top floor that a lot of us access, et cetera, et cetera. So I do feel like the retail in Friendship Heights over the years, even before COVID, but especially since COVID, has really deteriorated. And I mean, that's what brings people to our area, I feel, is retail and then some housing. I'll be interested to see what actually happens with the Mazda Gallery property, but I drive by it all the time and I see it. I mean, it's obviously being developed as a multi-use property, but mostly for housing. I will add, I think a concern that any of us who live in the area, when you have more development that obviously can incorporate more traffic, and we already have a fair amount of traffic. So how to kind of manage, how to balance, developing the area, making it a place where people want to come back to, because right now it's been dead for a while, honestly. It's been really dead. But also not make it oppressive for people who live in the area in terms of traffic or whatever. So those are some of my concerns, but I do think we have a lot of potential here. This was at one point a great place to access retail, et cetera. And obviously it's not been that way for some time. So I guess we have to see what comes next.
What I'm hearing a lot from everyone is like maybe it's not a thing. Well, I think we're excited. Everyone sounds like they're excited for more retail and stuff, but also for developing an identity for Friendship Heights. What does that look like in 20, 30 years? So I think these were all great points, and I appreciate the comments. Does anyone have any last words about what they're most excited about? Alex, do you want to say anything?
Well, I'm going to chime in because I think you just said it while I was listening to Susie's comments. I realized, yeah, what would I be most excited about is for Friendship Heights to have some sort of identity, some sort of character. That would be it. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we can move on to question 2. I actually think we're supposed to be already
Can I
on.
just add one more point? I agree
Sure.
with what was just said. And I just want to say one other thing. I do feel like the block between Western and I don't even know what was the street that the Saks properties on, that block. It's been very weird for a long time. There have been very strange businesses that have come in there, and I don't think they're necessarily the ones that attract people to come to shop there. So, I mean, you can't control who decides to take retail space, right? But I just think that's been over time a very unfortunate development in terms of what's moved in there over time.
Thank you for your comment. Luke, can you advance to question 2? All right, so we talked about what we're excited about. So naturally, we want to talk about what are you most worried or concerned about as we launch into the sector plan. I heard fears about traffic. Anything else?
I'd say traffic is, yeah, that would be top.
Top concern.
Lisa, this is Alex Ekman. I'm a relatively recent 4-year resident of Friendship Heights, but I've always I lived in DC for 50 years before that, and I had always thought of Friendship Heights as being a sort of a green belt between DC and Maryland because of the tree canopy and the parkland. And I always enjoyed coming up here, even if just to change buses to go on to somewhere else. But I've got 2 concerns about the future redevelopment of Friendship Heights. One is that new construction may crowd out the trees and the green space and the green canopy. One by one doesn't seem like such a big loss of a tree, but after you get dozens and dozens of them, it makes a difference. And I'd like to see some concept included in the sector plan, which would encourage the reforestation and the preservation of the canopy. And the second is a concern about access to the sidewalks and the curb lanes while the development is going on. We're trying to encourage pedestrian access and pedestrian accessibility here, and yet we've seen in nearby Bethesda for 20 years, they've been closing the curbs and the sidewalks and eliminating the curb lane and the curb parking to facilitate the construction companies that are building the buildings. And if there's any way that the county uh, can preserve maintenance of pedestrian access to the sidewalks and the curb lanes, and even including the bus stops on the streets. They do that in New York City all the time. I don't see why the contractors in DC shouldn't be able to do what the contractors in New York can accomplish.
Thank you. I think those are, valid concerns that have been echoed at, the in-person session too. I think, the sector plan can, look into those issues, especially the tree canopy issue. What about anyone else? What are you worried or concerned about?
I'm concerned about overdevelopment,
Okay.
congestion, and I don't know if this is part of the sector plan or thought, but one of the things I'm seeing in my area, which some of the people on this call share, in terms of living in this area, I'm concerned, frankly, this is less of a concern when it comes to Friendship Heights, but I think the whole issue of bike lanes has really impacted our community. I will just cite what's happened to Little Falls Parkway, which quite frankly, to me, is an abomination. Because basically, a street that gets very little bike traffic has now been relegated to a street that is frankly dangerous for traffic because it's been reduced from 4 lanes to 2. So I don't know if that's, again, part of the plan. I'm a biker myself. I'm not a biker commuter, but I'm a biker and I'm sensitive to that. But I've seen what's going on, Old Georgetown Road, Little Falls Parkway, plans potentially for Connecticut Avenue in Upper DC from Chevy Chase down. I think our community has always had a lot of potential. I'm excited about the potential that Friendship Heights has to be reinvigorated because it's been in the doldrums. But I also, by the way, I applaud the comments about the trees because, again, we are very lucky. We live in an area that has a lot of trees, and we should embrace what is good about our community and not, frankly, override that for other interests.
Thank you. I mean, the plan will definitely look into transportation elements. I can't speak to specifics at this point, but that is something that the plan will look into.
Well, I think this kind of maybe wraps up what several people have said, everything that Susie said and everything that Alex has said. It's the scale of development that worries me. And I mean, and by scale, I mean literally like physically what will be redeveloped. And then also just the final scale of things, I don't really find walking in Bethesda's sort of canyon of buildings to be very pleasant. And so I worry that I'm going to be living as a village resident right up against something that looks like downtown Bethesda. And that would worry me. That does worry me. Because I just think, yeah, for so many reasons, the tree canopy, traffic, all the infrastructure that's required of it, but also just for the communities around it. It already has that kind of feel of being a bit different because there are so many tall high rises. I worry that there's just going to be even more. Yeah.
I guess that actually, I didn't think I had any worries, but I guess I'll chime in just that I think this is a good opportunity to, I mean, maybe slightly different perspective that I'm worried that we'll just limp along and not do what needs to be done to reinvigorate this area and shy away from adding more people and more housing. And I feel like Friendship Heights already has a lot of, tall buildings along the street. It's not a single family home intense neighborhood as far as I can tell. So, we have this, like I said, a lot of these properties are on the DC side that are going to need to be redeveloped, like the Lord and Taylor site and stuff like that. So maybe a lot of it's already been done on the Maryland County side, but
Alex, can I respond to you? It really depends on
it's
how you
not really
define.
I don't think this was I mean, if we want to, okay,
No,
sure, go
no,
ahead. Why not?
sorry. I just want to say, yes, on Wisconsin Avenue, obviously between, the Saks building and what was Mazda Gallery. Yeah, there are some big developments, but I think what people are saying here is that we're concerned about the ancillary developments on the um, on the outskirts of the main area, the main streets like Wisconsin and even Western. And I just want to say one other thing, and I don't want to take up too much time. I know we have to get back out of the breakout room. Which is, I've been here a long time and I've seen changes over the years. And I think that one things we're really concerned about, those of us who've lived in the Chevy Chase, Friendship Heights area for a long time, is we don't want to see overdevelopment. I think that's what Alex was just saying. We don't want to see overdevelopment. We don't want to see more traffic. I would like to see, frankly, a reinvigoration of the metro system. I haven't taken the subway in a while. I used to take it all the time. I think there are issues around that. That's not in the control of obviously the planning council, but it is related because this is all of a piece. So I guess what I'm saying is I'd like to see reasonable development, but not overdevelopment, because that the surrounding areas, the neighborhoods around Friendship Heights are very unique neighborhoods. And I think a lot of people like me who live in these neighborhoods, and some of us for years, decades, don't want to see them destroyed.
Well, thank you. We're going to move on to question 3. I think I'm going too slow here, but look, can you advance it?
Yes.
Thank you. So this question is, what makes Friendship Heights different from other neighborhoods around it? What about Friendship Heights do you hope will be preserved in the future? So I've heard a lot about the green canopy and preserving that. Anything else that we want to talk about?
Well, again, I think it's kind of interesting from, again, my perspective of how I approach Friendship Heights. It's nothing but medical office buildings and apartments. So that makes a huge, I mean, that's definitely not something we have in the village. So that to
Right.
me is, yeah, that would, yeah. That in a nutshell makes Friendship Heights different for me. Yeah.
Friendship Heights is also, I'm Kathleen. I live in Friendship Heights in the Carlton, and I own another property here in Friendship Heights. And I'm a 4th-generation Washingtonian, so I've been around a while as well. Friendship Heights has the largest density of seniors in Montgomery County, even larger than Leisure World. So it's a great place for people to age in place, which I hope remains. It's a great sense of community in these 13 high rises here. I moved here from a big house in Potomac because my husband was ill. I had to get him on one floor. And but predominantly because of the walking nature of the community here. I walk, I own a business here. I walk to almost everything, and that has the most appeal to me, and that's what makes Friendship Heights different. There's a group of 30 women that meet every morning at Friendship Heights Village and walk 3 miles through the neighborhoods. And it's just a great sense of community that I didn't feel so much in Potomac, and I lived there 35 years.
That's a really great point, Kathleen. Thank you for sharing. I live in downtown Silver Spring, so I grew up in like an area like Potomac in Southern Maryland, and I totally understand that. And there's nothing like the community of just being able to walk and talk to your neighbors. It's easy as a place like Friendship Heights. Anyone else want to share what different or what you hope will be preserved?
Actually, I just want to second your thanks, Lisa, to Kathleen, because again, not being a resident of Friendship Heights, and I don't even know anybody who lives in Friendship Heights. So I'm really delighted to hear a perspective. So thank you for sharing that, Kathleen, especially the statistic about seniors. I did not realize that. So thank you very much for bringing that to light.
Yeah, it's called a NORC, actually, an NORC, a naturally occurring retirement community where people bought 40 years ago and they forgot to leave. They're just here.
So rapid fire, we only have 60 seconds left. Are there any other
Okay.
communities in the areas that are good model or offer lessons learned for Friendship Heights?
Lessons learned for Friendship Heights.
Let's preserve what's good about Friendship Heights and not screw it up.
Thank you, Susie.
I guess the only thing that concerns me, I like the development, I like the growth. I know traffic's got to come with it if we're going to grow. So, you can't have one without the other, to me, is crime. That is other neighborhoods that have developed, like Georgetown, and grown, they have crime issues, and I hope we don't hear.
No one has any communities around the area or in the country that they think they want Friendship Heights to maybe look at lessons from them?
One thought that I had was when you put that out there was the 14th Street corridor in DC.
Yeah.
I just love that area, and there's so many quirky, well, it's gotten a little more gentrified or whatever, but in general, there's those smaller, interesting things. And I do think there needs to be a certain amount of density to support that kind of business in the area. So I don't know. I don't think you can have one without the other. So I hope we can find the right balance.
I also love 14th. It's a great restaurants. I love to walk around that area.